We're back. It's the Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. Fisher, Desopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Crowder. Get your horns up because here we go into BYU. We're back at home. We were in Dallas. We had a bye week. We were in H-Town. Dallas better than H-Town, but none of it's Austin. We're back home in Austin where we belong. Quinn Ewers not out for the season, probably 2 to 4 weeks. We have Maalik Murphy, one of the guys we ironically have been most excited about seeing for pretty much the entirety of the offseason and into the season. We're going to get a real glimpse at Maalik Murphy and his electric arm and his electric athletic ability, but can he really maintain it through 4 quarters? We're going to get that answer against BYU. And the man that's been hopping around town, he was at Pitt, he was at USC, now he is in the Book of Mormon. Keaton Slovis is under center for the BYU Cougars. They come into our town as 19-point dogs. The over-under is 50. Gentlemen, why not start there? And I'll give you a little bit of a taste before we get into it. The Horns have gone under in 5 of their 7 games. The Cougars have gone over in 5 of their 7 games.
Wow.
We are both 3-4 against the spread.
And I think the opening line of this game was at 16.5, and it's moved in favor of the Longhorns to 19.5 now. So, yeah.
Still looking for our first game over 40 points, the Longhorns. And if the spread here is 50, I mean, we've been able to score over 30 every single game. That means we're really counting on the BYU offense to also be able to get some points here, which defense looked a little shaky last week against Houston, not going to lie. If there's a team that, I'm circling on this schedule, it was going to be BYU the whole year, just because of the history that we've had. And of course, Slovis is a good quarterback. But they're 5-2. I mean, they're a good team. They're probably going to be a bowl eligible team. They look as it stands right now. If they were to beat us, they could be the team going to the conference championship against Oklahoma. So, this game's got big implications for both teams, in my opinion. I don't love Horns minus 19, if I'm being completely honest, just because we've played a couple of close games. I'd probably take BYU plus 19 and I would go over.
Yeah, I can tell you anyone that's not a Texas fan is licking their chops at us being minus 19. And all I'd have to do is shoot a quick text over to our buddy Morgan, who's a Frogs fan, and I'm sure he's already on board with that bet. But I'm right there with you, Nick. I'm not going to bet on them to cover because I'm not going to bet against the Horns. But we didn't show me enough in this last game against Houston. I know we were on the road, but there were a lot of Longhorns that were there. There was a lot of burnt orange in that crowd that were eyes to eyes, at the end of the game. And our secondary just didn't show me enough. And I hope that we have a get right game and PK and the defense, makes a stand here and silences a bunch of the critics, right? We're still on the Embrace the Hate tour. We can't forget that. And I know they haven't forgotten that in the locker room. And this is a team that, this is their first year in the Big 12, but we have some shared history with them. And even though it wasn't always Sark at the helm in coaching for us, they've gotten the upper hand on us a couple of times, especially when we were there during our tenure as Longhorns.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, Taysom Hill dominated us. I do think in distinction with the game that we played against Houston, while Slovis is a very capable thrower, he doesn't have the mobility in the pocket that Donovan Smith has. And while Donovan Smith was not looking to beat us by taking the ball upfield, he extended a lot of plays by breaking out of the pocket and then keeping his eyes upfield. And I think that it's not necessarily something that Slovis is quite as good at. So I think if we can get that pressure, maybe this is finally the game where it all culminates in us actually getting a lot of sacks in the box score. And I know we've been asking that for 5 weeks now, the entire season, basically. Like, I feel like, Nick, that's been your takeaway every single time for the defensive side. So It's a prove it game for our Horns, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been pretty strong in the red zone, though. I'm actually going to go with us to cover and go with the under. I think the defense shows up and shows out. Like, we weren't so satisfied with them, but we still only let up 24 points on the road against Houston, and they played their absolute best game they possibly could. We let up, I think, as a team, they had under 30 rushing yards. So at that rate, like, I love what our run defense is capable of. I love what our running attack can do. They give up some yards on the ground, the Cougars do. So my mindset is glass half full. They don't have the tape on Maalik Murphy. We have a brand new, it's a new quarterback, new capabilities. Like, there's less pressure on Maalik Murphy. All he has to do is get in and get out of games. And now it really will fall on Jonathan Brooks' shoulders. And we love what he's been doing. Major's another week healthy, which is something nice to see. Obviously the offensive line with the young guys, Campbell and Banks, has been phenomenal. So I'm feeling really confident in our ability to run the ball and our ability to cover that 19-point spread. I could easily see us winning 31-10. And like our defense really having a prove-it game, right? So that'd be really exciting for me to see. And then, again, we just have to see what Maalik Murphy can do. This is a team that's been not like riddled by injuries. Obviously, we have Quinn Ewers out again this season. We had him out last season. But we've had some weird ones. Hudson's been out. We had at the guard spot, Majors had some injuries. Ryan Watts in and out of the lineup. Catalan in and out of the lineup. So our defensive backfield's taken some hits from the injury side on some of our biggest, playmakers. And in this one, I'm hoping that they could come back and prove that Keaton Slovis, while a fine quarterback, is not a real threat. And we can have a bounce back game like we, against off the Donovan Smith 350-yard plus game.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Maalik, of course, coming in first start. We've seen a lot of backup quarterbacks, and I think the guys that, we don't have tape on sometimes, surprise us the most, because you just don't necessarily know what part of their body they're going to use. Are they going to run the ball? Are they going to, throw the ball deep? Are they going to dink and dunk? With Maalik, everything he's done this year in spring and just coming in and being ready for the challenge and being part of this team, speaks volumes, of course. I think the locker room is really behind him, sticking it through, even though they've recruited Arch. And of course they brought in Quinn and he still wants to continue to be a Longhorn. That just shows really good team spirit. And, he's a true leader, I think, in this locker room. And I really don't think that there's going to be any mistakes here that are made. And really excited to see what he can do. Completely honest. I thought he was going to be our starter going into next season anyway, if Quinn decides to go to the NFL and we want to, hold Arch for a little bit. I am curious to see, though, like if he does make mistakes early on, how long is that leash? Like, are we going to, look to make a switch pretty early if he's thrown a couple picks, turned the ball over a couple times, and we're just not moving the ball? Every game from here on out is a playoff game. So you can't lose. You can't drop a single game. And, if we're down by a couple of scores at halftime, like, do we look to Arch Manning? That might be the case.
Yeah. Just returning real quick to the injury report. I believe this is from Coach Sarkisian that Ryan Watts, Jett Bush, our fifth-year linebacker, Alfred Collins, defensive tackle, and Gavin Holmes, our transfer defensive back, will all be available, but they will be monitored closely throughout the game. So it's good to know that they're going to be active, that they're going to be out there for us. I think that helps a lot. But back to what you were talking about, Nick, he was with us before Quinn was, right?
Yeah.
Like he committed, he was on campus before Quinn was. He was in Columbus at the time. So I completely agree with you. Just the sentiment that he wants to be here. He buys into the program. I think I'd also assume that he's buying into his own talent as well. If I were the opposition here, I'm forcing him to throw and beat you in the air, right? That's what we've said time and time again with some of these backup quarterbacks that we've been facing, early in the season. So I expect that they're going to stack the box, right? We were able to run effectively in that game winning, or the drive that put us up in that game against Houston, I guess the game winning drive technically, where Baxter broke open that 16-yard touchdown run, but Brooks and Baxter, right? It was that 1-2 punch. They know, I think, a lot more of what's coming defensively from a schematic standpoint. And I would expect that they're going to load the box and really force him to make throws downfield and beat them with his arm. I will say, like, just watching him at the end of that game, like, his size and stature is so starkly different than Quinn.
It's crazy.
I can't wait to see him tuck and run and see what he can do with his legs too. And he's a tremendous athlete. So I know I'm definitely anticipating some good things from him in that regard.
Yeah. I think we could have big games from Jonte Cook. We could have a big game from, Sed Baxter. We could have a big game from Helm, who's been playing pretty well, honestly. These are the guys he's taken a lot of second team reps with, and these are the guys that he's worked out with, and playing not with the firsts. So maybe Sark's been wanting more Cook in the game. So maybe that's something we see. And you like you're saying, his size, his athleticism, he's everything you want to see and more. So it's just really going to be like, so is Swoops, and he never put it together. So you can look the part, but you have to put it together on the field. And going back to the basics, it's just really everything we've ever wanted to see from Quinn. Can you keep the game contained? Can you not make mistakes? As bad as Quinn's quote unquote long ball has been, right? Or in the past, like, he had a crazy streak of not turning the ball over with an interception. It's pretty impressive. So if you're Murphy, not trying to do too much.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You have so many good playmakers. You could keep the game within, and I know he's got a live arm, but you could really keep the game within 15 yards of yourself, right? In your whole circumference, and you could be fine. You could quick outs, quick balls to Sanders up the seam, quick outs to Worthy. You could have Whittington on a slant if you're in the passing game. Like, get the ball into your playmakers' hands quick and efficiently, and that's going to open up the run game, which should take you home.
And that really comes down to Sark's play calling as well, putting him in the position where he doesn't have to be the guy making crazy throws and forcing things, trying to do too much. Sark needs to drop plays that are very easy for him to connect with receivers, and the biggest thing is getting the momentum, right? Finding your groove early on, getting a couple completions, figuring out who you trust in your receiving core, getting the chemistry. Because, at the end of the day, he's only thrown 8 passes this season. So, we need to see a little more, just in terms of sample size of what he's able to do, for us, but also these receivers. They practice together, but it's a lot different when you get in the game, when you're going up against a bunch of Division I athletes who could end up going to the NFL. It's a different ballgame, so it just really comes down to how he's going to respond with his teammates.
Yeah. I mean, this is a type of game where I know, we've often had frustration watching the Texas Longhorns in the last 5 years because of the predictability of the offense. If we ran the ball on first down every single drive, I would not be mad this game. I think we are in a position where the disparity of skill between our team, especially our offensive line and our running backs, and the opposition that we're playing this game and the games going forward, that we should be able to get between 2 and 4 yards every first down that we have the ball. And if that puts Maalik in a position where he's ahead of the sticks, I think that much more where he can be confident in himself. And with that, I'd say I'd probably want to see a little less wide receiver screens, bubble screens to start off drives, because if he makes a mistake on one of those throws, I know we have really good blocking wide receivers in AD and in Whittington. If we're getting Worthy the ball or Jonte the ball in those scenarios, but all it takes is one quick mistake. Now it's 2nd and 10. Now, if we want to run the draw play, they know it's coming, right? And we're behind the sticks, and Maalik's in a position where he might start pressing a little bit, which again, I agree with what you're saying, Josh. I made the allusion to the fact that maybe this offense could be Shanahan-esque, right? The college version of that. Brock Purdy is the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. He is an excellent game manager, a quote unquote system QB is kind of the conversation right now with him. He lets his playmakers do all the work. And so I think it needs to start with that. And if we get a lead, then you can start getting creative with it and testing Maalik a little bit and challenging him, because he's going to have to quarterback the next game as well. But we have to walk out of this game with the dub, most importantly.
Have to. It's non-negotiable.
Every game, seriously. Every game's a playoff game.
Absolutely. It couldn't be. There's no truer statement. And I do feel it's the game where the defense has to step up and continue to we have to get sacks. It's probably the only issue we really have is we have to get to the quarterback. And he's a good quarterback, but we have to get. And I know Arkansas has not had a great year, but they took down Arkansas in Fayetteville. This team is not this is not and this is a game that you've had circled. This is not a rollover game, and we're at home. And they went into Texas Tech and they caused 5 turnovers. So they're no joke. So not taking them lightly. But I did think it was a good, look, Sark's been the guy in previous years where it's been mum on who's the starting quarterback, even with Quinn in the building. Is it going to be Quinn and Hudson? He kept that really close to his chest. He pretty much came out from the jump and was like, it's going to be Maalik Murphy. Do not expect to see Arch Manning. So I think he's really confident in Maalik Murphy. I'm going to take, again, a glass half full approach and not err on the side that Arch is completely unprepared and not ready. but roll with the fact that he thinks Maalik Murphy can truly be a starting quarterback in a big time game. So, and again, like, get a turnover, play good special teams, right? We need good kicking from Auburn, as we always keep saying. So all that in the fold, and I think we should come away with a big victory. And Murphy's job is, paramount to our success. And when we get Quinn back, hopefully for the Big 12 championship.
Yep. And other great, amazing news, landed at a big recruit that we've had our eye on all season long, Ryan Wingo from Missouri, commits to Texas. He's the number 2 wide receiver in 2-4 sports composition. He's the number 5 nationally ranked player on 2-4 sports. He's a 5-star wide receiver who's going to be a big game changer here for Texas. And it's awesome that we were able to go get a guy, from a different state. Then he was very close to committing to Missouri, and he picks us over them, over Georgia, Michigan, and Alabama, big schools. And, Sark continues to do big work here. And I have a report that I've read on this kid is that he's got blazing speed. He's got big play potential. Anytime he touches the ball, could be a punt returner, a kick returner, deep ball. I mean, this is the type of guy that does it all that, you're looking for, kind of like Devontae Smith in college, or, Jordan Addison, where, you give him some space and he can turn on the jets and burn you. So huge addition here. Big win, during the week for Texas, and excited just to see this receiving class, or just the receiving room, get deeper and deeper, as we continue to build, what we have right now with Worthy and AD Mitchell and Jonte Cook and Ryan Niblett, all these guys in the program.
Jesus,
build on. It's stacked.
So stacked. Oh, I'm trying to pull up a tweet. Somebody said that Arch is inheriting like the number 1 running back, the number 1 wide receiver, the number 1 offensive lineman. This kid's there's never been an easier life than Arch Manning. I thought that was I tried to find it on our, I don't know if I thought I retweeted it from our account, but it's it's honestly, it really is true. And Sark has just done a tremendous job bringing in real talent. And this is a guy like we could have lost him after the OU game, but we're not that program anymore. Nope. And we're a real threat week in and week out to get some of these offensive guys. Look, if you're a receiver and you see what Worthy's doing, and we've been saying it, Worthy's had quiet game after quiet game. He's not been talked about like the kid from Washington. He's not been talked about like the kid from LSU. Obviously, Maserati at Ohio State. And the kid at Mizzou and Luther Burden, who's been pretty fantastic. Yeah, he's been great too.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning. Yeah, he's a halfway through the mark All-American.
Keon Coleman at Florida State with
exactly. And Igbuka even on Ohio State, but Worthy deserves to be in the same conversation. He's a first-round talent, and every week, bang, 6 receptions, 97 yards, bang, 6 receptions, 95 yards. Like every week it's the same. Well, and every route, talk about like every route. There's not a route that he isn't catching a ball on. Everything from the bubble screens to the deep balls.
Yeah.
So if you're a young receiver like you're talking about, Nick, and in your scouting report for Ryan Wingo, and you see that week in and week out for Xavier Worthy, how can you not go to Coach Sarkisian and now the SEC?
Yeah, no, 100%. And of course, as we know, when Arch does step up and gets those reps and gets playing time, he's going to be in the national spotlight every single game. He's going to be highlighted and showcased.
Yeah.
And when he makes a throw, he's making a throw to Ryan Wingo, and Freddie Du Bois and Jonte Cook. So, these guys are going to get a lot of national attention, which could help their personal brands, for NIL, but also raise their stock in the NFL as well. So, if you're a receiver right now, in high school, looking to commit to a school, there's really not a better opportunity right now than Texas. And that's not even a biased opinion, just because of your marketability standpoint with Arch Manning on the fold. I mean, you could argue that Ohio State is like that as well. I mean, they've got a stable of guys, but when it comes to national spotlight and getting in the media, you're going to have a lot of airtime at University of Texas,
even especially a quarterback,
right? Especially just with the move to the SEC. And I think, you mentioned, Josh, that we lost the Red River rivalry, but that was a really close game. It was game day that week, as it often is. Both the teams were top 13 teams at the time. Both the teams are still ranked in the top 10. Like that game mattered. It still matters. We're going to be talking about it at the end of the season. And I don't think that that's going to be slowing down for either of these programs, Oklahoma or Texas. And so with that national coverage alongside playing with, guys like Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, and for the University of Texas, like just by nature of the competition that we're up against as well. And the fact that we're playing to that competition as opposed to playing down to that competition, which we've done in past over the last couple of years, I think is good motivation for these young guys too. I saw something that I think maybe a vendor at the Texas State Fair had asked Colin Simmons when he was there, like where Ryan Wingo was going. And he told them in confidence, like, just wait, like you'll know soon or something like that. Or maybe he even told them, but told them not to tell that he was going to Texas. So the fact that Arch, of course, we've talked about on this team or on this podcast before, how vocal he has been with bringing in recruits to the university. I think Colin Simmons has been essential in that process as well, especially for Ryan and other recruits to come. And the guy hasn't even stepped foot on the 40 acres as a freshman yet. So I love that from our guy, Colin Simmons.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Cass was the backup quarterback at USC. Never started a game. Was an NFL starting quarterback, made the NFL. Like you could be Archer's backup and you'll get airtime. Like that's how valuable he is. And yeah, I mean, look, it's good to see like Simmons with all these guys they're all boys. They're all talking to each other. They're creating that vibe in the locker room. They're creating that brotherhood that you have for the rest of your life. Like they're creating what it means to be in college, like our college experience too. Like you knew guys coming into school, like you knew guys that were older and younger. Like they're still college students. They're not like just like, football players and that's it. Like we want them to have a good college experience, and it's not too dissimilar to what we saw in our lives. Quickly around the NCAA before we rock and roll. OU heads to Kansas. Looks like Bean's going to be the starting quarterback again. Daniels, unfortunately for us, is not playing in that game. FSU at 9 a.m. our time at PT. Heads to Wake Forest. Hopefully, boys, that would be sweet if we can get that one. That'd be a fire sneaky win for the Demon Deacons. For us, Georgia heads to the Swamp. I'm not anticipating that they lose that game, but that would also be pretty fire. And then the Oregon Ducks head to Utah, who's coming off a major win in Los Angeles at the Coliseum. So look, like if one of those three teams wins, it's another team off our back.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's huge. And we've been watching these games like hawks and texting with Q and texting about, who we want to lose. And at this point, it's basically everyone, right? Except Alabama. We want them to keep winning. But yeah, it's college football has never been more exciting. And I think for us, we pay attention to what's going on, in college football at large, but it becomes that much more exciting when the Horns are involved in those conversations. And we still are staying relevant. Like, last few years, we started relevant at the beginning of the season because we're the University of Texas, and then we lost that relevancy. And this year we're holding on to it. We mentioned it earlier in the week on the previous show, but this is the most consecutive weeks that we've been ranked 10 or higher since 2009. Even longer than we were in the 2011 season, which just shows, we were kind of underrated going into that year. And of course, if Colt didn't get hurt in the in the 2010 national championship game, things would have been different. But just hold on to it and stave off all the naysayers. That's what we got to do.
Most important phrase, and I said the other day in one of our shows, I said the most important quote in sports, which was Mike Tyson's quote: "Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth."
Yep.
The most important phrase in sports: survive, advance. That's it. You just got to survive and advance. Worry about what you can control. I mean, we talk about it in betting. We talk about it in survivor pools. Survive and advance, and everything else around you will play out. All right, Fisher, DeSopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Crider. We'll see you guys next time with Quan Cosby. Let's go beat BYU. Get your horns up. We out, show. We love you.
Hook 'em.